Hi everybody, today we're going to create a scene like this with True Terrain 5 version 64 being available, giving us back water. Of course, we're going to create a lake scene. Additionally, some of you guys have commented that you want to know how to create or imbue your terrain with more details and roughness, coarseness. This is also something we're going to take a closer look at. So without further ado, let's create a landscape. And what we're going to do is we're going to add this, but then we're going to delete it and use one of the many cool height maps already available in True Terrain 5, and for this one we're going to take mountain number 5 because I like the geometry of this terrain and because I like my terrain to sit on top of the coordinate system. We're going to click on this anchor icon and click lowest, and then we've got everything properly set up. We are also going to move this slightly towards the back so that we have more room for our lake. And we're going to find a nice view like so for something like this. Maybe like that. Okay, so we've got our... So don't worry about this step over here because the lake will actually change that. If you don't want to have this lake and this step, all you have to do is play with the mid-level over here. So something like this. You can increase this for a bit. And then we've got our terrain. Now let's head over to water. Add water. We don't do a separate object. This is something I'm going to explain in a later video. Just saying okay. And over here we have lake, ocean, river and simulation. We're going to take a lake this time. Just clicking OK. And as you can see, there was something happening over here. There's a dent in our landscape, but that's what's cool because eventually it will always be at the full 0 point here. So we've got this position picker, so we click on that and we put the lake over here, and that's already fine. Now with terrain deformation, that's very interesting to see. We've got, of course, the lake depth, which will affect the color and also foam. I'm going to address this a little bit later. We can play with that, and the radius is self-explanatory. So let's take a look like so. And then we've got shoreline. That's very interesting because that is how high your, I don't know, your shore to the lake or your river actually is. You can make it like so, and the width is the fall off. So let's go with something like this. So let's go with 5 and 9, and that should be okay. The fall off is actually over here. Now before we start with texturing, let's get back out of here a little bit like so. So we've got a little bit of foreground over here. I want to make sure that we have proper scaling, and to do that what I like to do is just open this up so we've got actually which terrain we have selected. Over here we've got the built-in asset library for shaders and for the object. So we click on object, and in your asset library over here we've got the true terrain 4 and 5 objects. And the cool thing is there is a lemon tree. Yeah, here it is. Lemon tree number 1, who is exactly as high as grown adult. So when I'm putting that over here, you can actually see how large or how far away the whole landscape is. That is something we can address by changing the camera view a bit, like so. Like so. Yeah, and it gets fiddly after a certain. Yeah, let's do it like this. Right, now let's see what we can here do. Water is not looking that great at the moment. It will change when we apply shaders, and we will go into fine-tuning the water at the end. Now, let's head over to shader. Let's create shader material. And you can, as you know, I've actually installed all the materials from True Terrain 4, which was kind of a mistake because there's so many in there. But what we can do is go to packs and use only the True Terrain 5 materials. So what we're going to take is, let's go with brown pebble, and you can use whatever resolution you want. I like to work with 4K. And then we're going to scale it. And you can already see, let's move in here a little bit, that this might already be too much. So let's go with something like this. And make a bit of displacement over here. Can play with the specular. I actually like to turn it off, but that's totally up to you. And then we're going to mix in some grass texture. Again, we can work with the packs and take the True Terrain 5 pack. There's some dark grass, 4K. And we bring that in, play with the scale as well. Something like this looks fine. Bit of displacement, and then we're going to use a patch mask and maybe decrease the patches a little bit, something like that, and then we can play with the seed. Let's go in here. What does that look like? Something like this. Let's play with the seed again. Yeah, maybe something like this. Okay, so we've got the foreground, and now we're going to address our cliffs and background. So what we're going to do is more or less exactly the same. We're going to take, I don't know, let's stick with the True Terrain 5 pack and take the dark rock over here, 4K. And now we don't have to look at the foreground. We want proper scaling at the back, something like this. And we're going to mix this in with a slope mask. So let's see how that looks. Actually, I need to invert that. So everything would be the rock, and I'm slowly bringing back my ground texture. So when I'm looking at that, this should be ground exactly. And here is our rock, and I'm going to mix this with another rock, make it more contrasty. So let's go with black rock. Again, scale it as you want, like this over there. Maybe make it really dark, not that dark. And we're going to use a patch mask again. this is far too much, so we're going to scale the amount of patches to 0 and slowly increase that and play with something like that. So we've got this mixture over here, but I don't want it in my foreground. So what we're going to do is add another one, make a slope mask, and now I want maybe invert it back, and then I've got this all black again. So I've got my ground over here, over there, and we've got our texturing made. So again, let's take a look. Yeah, here are my rock textures. Okay, so details. Okay, there's a couple of things you can do for details. The first thing actually is lighting. So if you have very flat lighting like that, you won't see much detail. So let's play with the sun rotation. I'm just using Nishita Sky over here, and maybe even increase the sun elevation. Maybe play like this. Not too much, but something like that could work, right? Second thing is, which is more than obvious, is when we start doing our terrain, we always start with 265 vertices, which is really not a lot. So depending on your system, you can increase this indefinitely, but a pretty nice grid value is 1500 or 2000. So let's go with 2000 and see what that does. Yeah, well, it does a lot. You see already all those creases and things are popping up, and without distorting our textures over here too much. So what else can we do? Well, we can go back to shader and open up the material settings. So the first thing I want you to experiment with is play with the displacement scale. So like something like this. You need to be careful, because if you do too much, I mean, the background looks cool, but you can see those very, very ugly displacement, more or less artifacts. So we need to slowly bring that down again. So something like that, that looks okay, and we still got a very nice background. And the other thing is increased detail depth. Look at the foreground, how the pebbles start, and the details depth, how the pebbles start to pop. So let's take a closer look. Actually, they do almost too much. So let's bring this down a little bit, like so, and this is fine. We see some of these edges from the displacement, so let's bring this down a little bit. I think we should still be fine at the back. Yes, we are. Okay, and last but not least, you can do this. And this is one of my favorite new features at True Turing 5. Let's bring in another texture, and again we can use any textures, but pack 5, and we're going to take dark rock, and we're going to scale this. You realize it's getting, or you see it's getting very laggy over here. What we're going to do is head over to our vertices, open that up, and we've got 2K in here, but we're going to, for the viewpoint, just show a quarter of it, and that should give us more speed in our workflow. So we've got this. Now, the mask we're going to take is a texture mask. So at the beginning it doesn't do very much, but over here, if you click on shader mask presets, you got a lot of presets, and I like to work with Voronoi distance to edge type D. So if I'm clicking that and then applying that, what you can see is that, let's invert this. No, that's okay. So let's just bring the, I have no idea how to spell that, lacunarity or whatever, a little bit down. So as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm bringing, and let's see how that looks. I'm bringing those cuts and edges into my terrain. You can play with that as much as you like, and believe you me, I did a lot of that. We can make it even larger. What does that look like? We should have larger over here. In the shader we need to, what I'm actually doing, because it's not even a standard, I'm going with -1.5 in here. So I'm getting real cuts in here. And we can rotate that. And at the mask we can decrease or increase the details like so, and the scale like this. It just adds another level of details. Okay, so that's what you can do to increase the amount of details. So what we're going to do, because we've worked that in on a lower viewport amount, let's just see how that looks, because sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming. This is a little bit too much, but eventually it doesn't look that bad. So we can keep that. Okay, now let's bring in some trees and vegetation, because it doesn't look that interesting right now. Okay, let's go to scatter, create a scatter system, and you've got a couple of options how to scatter your stuff. So the first one is just click on the plus, say object, pick one of the objects over here, like the eucalyptus tree, click OK, and you're good to go. And then you just play with the seed, and you got some of your trees in here. It's always the same tree, more or less. So let's delete the layer object, because what you also can do, you can, from your asset library, you can select more than one. No, you can even, no, let's just take the eucalyptus tree, go to scatter, say add all. We don't have any other quality levels available, and there we have it. We can delete the first one because the scatter system was created by itself. So something like this, make this a little bit smaller, and we're also going to do two masks. The first one is an attribute mask, because I know there is a preset called above waterline, which actually comes very handy, because no tree will be in the water right now. And the second one is a slope mask, because I don't want trees to be scattered on the steep edges of my terrain. Now we've got that, we can still play with seeding and find something that we like. So something like this, but it is still a little bit scarce. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 5K of objects, and you won't see any difference because the viewport target is set to 1000 to actually see where your trees are. You need to match the render target, and that looks like this. And let's go with one over here. I want to see our trees. I mean, this all looks good, but I want to have the terrain and the lake in good view. So we take this, for example, and we can take another mask, which would be the distance mask. So let's bring that in. And the first thing is we don't have any object, so we're taking the camera as our reference point. And when I'm increasing that, we're getting less in the back and more in the front, but I want it the other way around, so we're going to invert that. And then we should see more and more trees in the back and less in the front, so something like this. Just play around with it like you want it to be. That actually looks quite nice. We don't need our person scale tree over here anymore. So let's go back, maybe do the rotation normal amount. If I'm putting that everything to 0, everything will stand up straight. So a little bit of normal amount is okay. And the scale is okay as well. So what we're going to do is again play with the seed. So something like that looks okay. Means some more trees in the front would be okay. Something like that. Yep. And then again, play with the seed. I mean, this is interesting when you're actually doing the scene. Watching me playing with the seed is probably super boring, but let's stick with that. I don't like the patches over here now, so I can go back here and go to my patch mask and play with the seed here as well. Something like this. Yeah, maybe like that. That's fine. Maybe even make the patches a little bit larger. And play with that again. Yeah, something like that. That's okay. And that's the great thing. Maybe we want not the brown pebbles, but some dark leaves. We can go with that as well, or dark wet. Yeah, I think I go with that. That gives me a nice texture. That's okay. Okay, we've got our scene over here almost finished. However, texture grass is a little bit boring. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm heading over to my scatter system again, and I'm deactivating the visibility. Careful, if you leave that off, it will not render. So we have to remember that. So what we're going to do is create another system, and we are going... Oh, I show you something else, because you know already how to scatter, but I'm showing you something else, because that's cool as well. If you have botanic or vegetation or any other plant library, because with grass, true terrain 5, even 4 is not that abundant. So I like to use the plant library, go to grasses, I'm taking the clover and the dryland and those patches, maybe take this all, rock plain. I'm taking all of that and I'm saying scatter selected. And what? Nope, that's not good, because what it did is bring it into the, so I need to do a new layer and then scatter the selected. And then the layer object should show up in a second. There we go. Let's go back over here. We can see almost nothing because the amount is far too small. But before we do that, we're going to do another attribute mask, but this time we're going to paint one for ourselves. So over here there is a paintbrush, and we will call this grass. You can call it whatever you want, and it goes over to vertex paint, and we're going to paint everything where we want our grass to be white. So we're not going to make it a little bit patchy like so, and over here as well, and something like that. Okay, and over here, and back to object mode. So what we need to do now is increase this render target a lot. So we've got 1,000, let's make it 1,000,000. 10, 100, 1,000,000. So let's see what that does for us. And let's do a quick test render. As you can see, even 1,000,000 is not good enough. We can also see that the terrain is very nicely detailed and has the right textures on it, but we can also see over here that we see a lot of repetition. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I don't want the mist pass, and secondly, we are going to go to our shader, and this one over here, we're going to give an anti-tile with Voronoi that works in the foreground and should break up the monotony at the back, or the repetition over there. So that's fine. Once again, let's head over to scatter, and we really need to bring this up. So we've got 1,000,000, so let's do 9,000,000. Another test render, and we should get a nice meadow. Let's see if that's true. It's better. It's better. It's very patchy still. We can just make it even larger, but then, yeah, why not? We can play with that. So let's see what. If I'm increasing that with a 0, it's a little bit too much. So let's do this amount again, test that, because I'm not going to put that number into my viewport. Yep, that's gone. That's what we're going to take. Right. So, last but not least, we are going to address the water. And we can turn this off. Let's go ahead over to water. It's more or less the same thing over here. We've got the terrain information with the shoreline and everything. We can actually play with that a little bit more and maybe increase the height. No, we're not going to do that. But we are going to increase the resolution, because again, the water will come in with 265 vertices. We're doing more or less the same thing, but yeah, why not? Let's go with 2K. What you can see is it gets much more detailed, and that is something which is nice but not very realistic. So this is a lake, so what we're going to do is head over to surface, waves, and here we've got nice presets for the amount or the kind of waves we want. And this is I don't know, a rural lake or a mountain lake. We're going to go with calm over here, apply it, and we have much nicer water over here. And then we head over to shader, volume, where we can set the color of our water, which is of course transparent, but we are defining the particles that light reflects on and gives water its color. So let's go with dark blue. Apply that. Not much of a difference, but we can play here with the absorption. Make it more green or make it more transparent, something like that. The scatter, that's a little bit too ocean blue. Let's go with something like that. And we even do a little bit of dispersion over here on the water surface. This will render quite nicely. And last but not least, foam. We got a lot of foam already in here, and you can fine-tune that with this one. Something like that. You can see you can bring foam to almost everywhere. But let's make it a little bit more realistic, so something like that. And that's our shore foam. Okay, we're not going to animate it, so I don't need crest foam, but you can play with that and get that in. So that was weird, so if I'm deleting that again. Okay. Not sure what happened there, but eventually that's what we want, like so. Okay, good. We go back to scatter, maybe go back in here, bring in our trees, bring in our grass, and what we're also going to do, let's take a look, is head back over and make it a little bit more interesting to our object over here, and we've got some very nice, actually click on place, we've got some very nice forest rocks. We're going to place some into the scene. And maybe this one over here, and the large one, I think, oops, I think this one we're going to put in here. What's slowing it down now is the amount of the water, but we are almost finished, so we should be fine. And then let's bring in a tree stump over here, and another one over there. And maybe this one on this small island. And we should be good to render. So let's see what we get. Okay, I think that looks quite nice. I like this bit, and the stones are looking good. Everything is okay. So maybe I would change the camera perspective so I don't have those trees cut off. I like how those trees are going down up the slope. I've got this rock formation over here. It's actually okay. So some clouds would be nice, and that is something I would do with true sky. But I think this video is already long enough. However, this is what you can easily achieve following those steps, and I'm leaving you with the same scene lit with true sky. So maybe this is something you want to try as well. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.